From beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, you are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show. I'm your host, Sherry Voluntary, and I'm joined by my producer extraordinaire,
Guy Fawkes.
He wishes, okay, I gotta take this mask off. It's annoying the hell out of me. I don't see how people go and do these for hours in protests and wear that stuff. Whew.
So you don't get killed by the government.
Yeah, my face got to breathe though. And look at maybe it's like an indentation on my head.
Yeah. So what I've noticed is a lot of the kids in Hong Kong, they put their mask on the back of their head and then they wear a surgical mask on the front.
Ah, smart. Leave it to the people in Hong Kong to be smart like that.
Careful.
They are Asians.
You don't want to buy into any stereotypes.
But Stefan Molyneux says IQ matters. I don't listen to Stefan Molyneux though. Anywho, it's a little off topic, but so today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because this is the 5th of November, and of course that's when Guy Fawkes tried to blow up Parliament. So we always like to commemorate that just a little in our own small way.
Now, we're not saying his end goal wasn't okay, because it was a big socialist blah, blah, blah.
Well,
But the idea of blowing up Parliament is fantastic. And, of course, nobody would have known about that except for that great movie.
Yeah, V for Vendetta.
It's one of the most rewatchable movies I've seen. I can watch that every year on this date.
It is a really good one. We should watch it.
We should.
I hadn't planned to do that, but we should watch it tonight because I'm not feeling very well, and I'm kind of just going to go lay on the couch after this, so we should just do that. But you know what? The thing about V for Vendetta that is just sickening is how pretty Natalie Portman is, even bald.
Why is that sickening? That's awesome.
Because
she's also my favorite gangster rapper.
Yeah. I mean, Natalie Portman's pretty awesome. I will give you that. And she's gorgeous, even with her head shaved. Like, not a lot of women can pull that off, but
yeah, it's a shame that movie series ruined her career.
You think it did?
Oh,
there was
absolutely.
A series? There was just one.
Well, she was in all three.
Three what? Oh, you're talking about Star Wars. I thought you meant V for Vendetta. There's
no, that didn't hurt her career at all.
No, that was good.
It was entirely George Lucas that ruined her future.
But you know what's interesting to me is, as a person who, and you as well, who believe in the non-aggression principle. I'm assuming you believe in the non-aggression principle, Daniel.
Mostly.
So people who, like us, who believe that, it's very difficult to decide because so for those of you who may not be familiar, the libertarian non-aggression principle is that the only ethical use of violence and force is in defensively. So we couldn't be the first to aggress, but defensively, then that's okay because that person's already violated your rights. But clearly in this country, people have been violated over and over and over again, our rights. But it's very difficult because of the way it's done on such a large level for individuals to know when is the time, like when violence is appropriate. And I think that if there were some kind of violence to, the boogaloo were to start, boy, I mean, you just never know how that's going to end up. That can end up and put you in a way worse position than peaceful revolution, which I think peaceful revolutions on the whole have been proven to work a bit better. And, but sometimes you just get pushed. So,
but that said, we're the longest running Western democracy that hasn't been violently overthrown.
That's true.
So they might say they had it coming. I wouldn't say
I mean, they do have it coming, but do we, there's a difference in being legitimately using force against an aggressor and using wisdom in knowing that it's the best thing to do.
Absolutely.
There are two different things. Like you can have the right to do something, but that doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do for yourself, for your own best interest. So that's the difficult part.
It would be terrible for my kids' lives if a violent revolution were to happen.
Absolutely.
And so that would never be a choice I would make. But that said, you know, we had a friend who gave a pretty rousing speech a couple of years ago that, you know, if you believe that the Second Amendment is to stop tyranny,
Yeah.
we have tyranny.
Yeah, it was a beautiful off-the-cuff impromptu speech that I know we were both very privileged to be a part of that. And it was a thing of beauty to behold. So if you're out there watching, you know who you are. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to give him problems.
He does run my absolute favorite meme page on Facebook.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Anyways, so today is also not only the 5th of November as in Guy Fawkes, but it's also Election Day.
Yeah, do you see my I voted sticker?
Right. Yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about elections and why. I know I don't vote. Do you vote, Daniel?
I often, if I go into the voting booth, it's either to vote for somebody that I know personally and for a race that is local and specific, or it's to vote for Mickey Mouse so that a recording of a vote that wasn't for one of the two parties happens.
Right. And our friend Justin and I had this discussion a year or two ago about, because it confounds him and aggravates him very much that I do not vote. And I've explained to him many times that I don't vote because I can't. For one, I'm a voluntarist. I believe in voluntary human interaction. And so for me to vote, even if it's for something good, goes against that because it would be to force other people to do things they don't want to do. So I can't morally or ethically put myself in that situation. But I do get the defensive voting argument, and I don't hate people who do. It's not a choice that I can make and feel that I'm upholding my principles.
And for the most part, you're not really doing much to help your cause.
Right.
Because the choices, in almost every case, the choices you're given are not really different.
Right. And if it were only like in local elections, I can see doing that. Like that makes much more sense to me for a local reason. Yeah. Like those arguments for voting make much more sense. But even then, you're still forcing people. And often you don't know enough about these people. Politicians will tell you whatever to get in office because they are whores.
Yeah.
And they do want power. They're seeking authority. They're seeking power over people to tell them how to live so that they can institute their good ideas. So it doesn't matter what their intentions are. You can have the nicest person on the face of the earth with great intentions, and they still will enact violence against people to get done, for government to do what it thinks it should do, what they think it should do. So
yeah, the biggest case I've got recently where I've actually voted was for a friend of mine who was running for county commission, and that's because at the county level things are so drastically out of proportion because they don't have anybody overseeing them, and they spend money. They take it by fiat directly. They take it from old people and from people, like it's not even income tax, it's property tax, which is egregious. You know, if you think you own your land, try not paying your property tax.
Right. Yeah.
You're renting it from the government, and the county commissioners get to decide your rent.
Yep. There is no private property ownership of land in this country. Like that's the myth. That's one of the lies that they keep telling us, and people have bought it. You know, I used to believe those things too. I never considered that paying property tax on land that I owned is not ownership. That never occurred to me until I became a libertarian and I started looking into that stuff. So, and one of the things that I think is America is what, or the United States anyways, is what, 243 years old, something like that. 200, I looked it up.
233? No, I guess it would be 243 because I was not telling when 1976 happened.
1976?
So, yeah, the bicentennial. Oh. So, yeah, I was 6. So.
Well, anyways, so it's 243 years old. So that means there's been a lot of elections. You know, you hear people talk about if you want to protect our freedoms and remain free and all these things that the patriot class amongst us would love you to believe about voting. Are we freer today than our grandparents were?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean,
No.
so like
You're
I
not
remember,
voting in freedom.
I remember the election between Reagan and Carter, and I remember hearing how bad Carter was and how he was giving away all our power. That he would, he was giving away the Panama Canal, and that was going to be awful. And he was canceling the B-1 bomber program,
Right.
and that was going to be awful. And didn't we learn anything from Vietnam,
Right.
and how we're letting this pacifist hippie,
We
So-
learned about losing in Vietnam. That's
Yeah.
what we learned about.
and they didn't learn that lesson well enough.
No, they didn't.
Because now here we are in several quagmires
Well,
all at once.
Actually, I think they did. What they learned was that they need to be the biggest kid on the block and just dominate everyone in such a way that they don't have to call even their failures.
Well, and so I think the other lesson they learned is fatalities matter, but it doesn't matter how many of your young men get wounded. So now we don't have many people die on the battlefield. They just get maimed.
Not many of our people.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't
Oh,
matter
yeah.
how many of our people, because our other people get killed at this point either. They consider that a win.
And there's nothing wrong with PTSD, and there's nothing wrong with all of the other drug addiction. and
Right.
all of
Suicide.
all the other horrible things that happen as a result of war, as long as we don't have a body count to put on the news every night.
Yeah.
And they now have worked it out so that the news is all on their side.
Yes.
So the news believes that it's bad to leave war.
Yeah. And I was just watching, there's a progressive gentleman that I appreciate his consistency. His name is Jimmy Dore. He's a comedian, does these shows. And I was watching one where he was talking and he was talking, David Stockman, who was a Reagan speechwriter. He's an Austrian economist, was on Fox News.
That great pacifist hippie Ronald Reagan, one
Right.
of his speechwriters.
He was on this Fox News show, and they were giving him what for saying we shouldn't be spending this much on the military. The ladies kept saying, "You're starving the military." Our budget is more than, it's like 13 times
Yeah,
the next.
It's more than the 13
country.
next biggest countries' spendings
Budget.
combined.
Yeah, it's insane, and
So
yet
Russia and China and England and France. And
yes, so
India.
people who would say they're patriots, the conservative Republicans, gag me. Those are the people who will say crap like we're starving the military and we have the biggest military force the world has ever seen, and yet they get really upset with people who want universal health care. And look, I'm not a universal health care advocate. I'm not a person who believes that I owe other people through force of government money for anything unless I willingly want to give it. But you can see the argument is like, hey, how about we just take that money and spend it on, people in America who need help? Like that's definitely a better argument than we're starving the military because their budget's only $23 billion or something.
Well, I mean, they only got to make
billion.
14 of those F-35 monstrosities
Yeah.
this year. And, we can't fire every drone and cruise missile we want to. There's nothing that you really can't keep doing. The military should have no checks and balances. It's like Trump appointing generals to be the civilian oversight for the military. It's kind of counter to the point of having civilian oversight to the military
Yes.
if you have generals in those jobs.
Yeah. But it's good to see our friend Mr. Shawsome say too much money towards the military industrial complex.
Yeah,
You've come a long way, baby. But what I was going to say about the Jimmy Dore show is that after this, David Stockman, I encourage you all to watch it. It's really well done. David Stockman, of course, holds his own. And he speaks a lot of truth to them. And they just keep it's just like these things are just bouncing off of them because they have the talking points. I think he called it you've got me at the intersection of corporate figurehead and CIA talking points.
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome segment.
It really was. It was a good show. But one of the people on the panel, I think, had the best comment of the whole thing. And it was after it was over, he played the whole clip and he said, I forget the man's name, but he said, the biggest thing about this is they're training people how to react to information they don't like. This is how the media, that's part of the indoctrination machine, is those people refuting David Stockman, who was absolutely right about everything he said. And, they keep bringing up things like Syria was one of the things she mentioned as one of the reasons why we have to keep a big, spending on the military. And the whole thing was a lie. And David Stockman mentions that, but it's just like,
and every
poo, whatever. And
at one point it was, well, weapons of mass destruction. And there weren't weapons of mass destruction. And she said, but money.
Right. She just
have money.
Going to the next thing, but that's what they're training you to do. They're those talking points. And I know so many of us libertarians, as we're talking to people, we hear the same things over and over. And I know we've talked about that before. Like, if you don't like it here, you can move to Somalia. Why Somalia? Like, why is that particular one that everyone chooses that? And
well, because Somalia is awesome. It's like the African Riviera.
That, but I'm saying that Americans don't know. They know shit all about Somalia.
Yeah. No, if they let me move to Somalia, I would do it. But they want to charge me to give up my citizenship.
Right.
And I have to get permission to leave.
That's not my point. My point is that they're saying the same exact thing. Oh, you hear it a lot. You'll hear the same words being used. And it comes from Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and all those other shill, corporate media heads.
You mean great Americans.
Yeah, great American patriots. Who will keep backing the same things, and they'll give the talking points. They'll say the thing, and then you'll hear all the other lemmings say it over and over again, and there's no substance to it, because often when you question them or you probe a little bit, they have no idea what they're talking about. They just know the talking points, but they've been trained by those kinds of media shows, and now media is entertainment for people. Like the Fox and Friends and all those shows they're just entertainment for people to get their talking points, and they don't really learn anything. That's why they get so frustrated with us libertarians, because often we have a few facts with us. But
yeah, I'm not gonna use the old hackneyed line, but it's still true. It's just a distraction from what's actually going on. It's if you provide people with entertainment and you provide them with distractions, then they don't pay attention to what you don't want them to see.
Right. Yes. Just a sleight of hand that.
Yeah, misdirection.
Yeah. I wanted to point out something I saw today that Larkin Rose had shared, and it's beautiful. And this was Trump speaking to a group of Marines or something. And this is really good at showing how just ridiculous things have become with people, and how they are so willing to excuse their guy. They're so partisan that they're willing to excuse something that completely goes against everything they say they believe in. And yet he has the endorsement of that little R by his name. So crickets. And don't let Republicans fool you. They are just as bad as the left, as Democrats when it comes to this. Maybe even worse in some ways. So he said, this is a quote from President Trump: "Last year, my administration charged the largest number of firearm defendants ever recorded in the history of our country. We've increased federal firearm prosecutions by 44% compared to the last two of the previous administration. This is a record, a new record."
Woo!
And that's what they love.
You grab the guns and follow due process later.
And then he also said, "And just so you understand, because I think there is no stronger protector than me." How megalomaniacal is that? "We will always protect our Second Amendment. Always." So he's putting it up as firearm prosecutions of people are a protection of the Second Amendment. How much more 1984 coming true can you get? It's absolute newspeak. And they're eating it up, and they're hip hooray and hollering and being all happy about it. But really what it comes down to is that as long as it's their guy, they don't care.
There was an article another one of our friends shared today that was about how conservatives have taken back the Republican Party.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. There's very few conservatives. Like, I don't know very many that are actually in the Republican Party.
I mean, they certainly don't govern like conservatives.
No.
Rand Paul posted that they should publish the name of the whistleblower.
Wow.
Mr. Libertarian himself.
No, he's not.
He's Mr. Libertarian himself, the savior of the world. And he thinks that we should publish the name of whistleblowers.
Wow.
Now, like, the argument goes that it's part of the deep state and it's all just but you still have to protect whistleblowers.
Right.
Even if what they're saying is wrong, even if what their motives are, you can't make them be the focus.
Right.
Prove what they said wrong, and then
or do the Clinton and just murder them outright.
Wait, you got to disprove the facts. Wait till the case is no longer in till the primary case is over, and then if they did something wrong, you can maybe go after that. But certainly not as a preemptive strike to lynch the accuser. That's why Edward Snowden had to run to Russia, and why he gave his announcement in Singapore.
Right. And it's they want to give the appearance of law and order. You'll hear them say that a lot. This is a country of laws and we have the rule of law. And yet when it comes time for someone who is a whistleblower, all those laws are stacked against them. If they're telling, hey, these people are breaking the law by doing what they're doing, or hey, they're just outright murdering people, all the laws are stacked against a person actually coming forward. So they've written the laws in a certain way that keep suppressed the actual truth from coming out.
Yep.
And they go after these people just horribly. I also wanted to talk about something that the 10th Amendment Center shared today, who we love, Michael Bolden and the guys over at the 10th Amendment Center. They do such a great job. And there was an article by Lawrence M. Vance called "Why Republicans Are Powerless Against Socialism." And I'm please go support the 10th Amendment Center. Y'all, everyone should be on their Facebook page or something.
They are the single political organization I give money to.
I mean, they're actually effective in fighting the NSA and things like that. And so they have a different strategy than the one that I choose, but I support them because they're actually doing things in a way that block the alphabet boys from doing rolling
10thamendmentcenter.org. Michael Bolden, Michael Maharrey, Google them. There's just a world of good information out there.
And they put out a lot of great content. And so I wanted to just read you the conclusion of this article. He says, the conclusion is inescapable, which many of you have already come to this conclusion. Republicans are powerless against socialism because, as shown by their words and deeds, they are socialists themselves. And I love that. And through the article, he just goes through and lays out all the ways that Republicans will tell you, we've got to fight socialism. But it's the vague. They never explain exactly what is socialist because they don't want you to look too hard. They want to just say the keywords, make you afraid, and vote for them so that they can maintain some power.
We can't cancel the F-35 program, even though it doesn't work at a cost of over $1 trillion, because it's got part of those jets is made in every state. Mm-hmm. And so those are jobs programs, and it's a way for every senator to be able to say, look at what I've brought home. Mm-hmm. So they can't cancel that program because it's the government owning the means of production.
Right. So just to kind of bring this back around to voting, that's what you vote for. You vote for these people. Like, you don't have a choice. It's socialism or more socialism. Like, those are the two choices you have. You don't have, and it's not even like the best form of socialism. Yeah. And if you're going to say there's any good socialism, this certainly ain't the best form of it. So,
so when you go to the voting booth, you're given a choice between, you can either vote for this guy you don't like or that guy you hate.
Right.
If you're only choosing between that guy you don't like and that guy you hate, and if you look beneath the curtain or behind the curtain and they're the same, what are you accomplishing by voting?
Mm-hmm. And just the fact that we don't see the results. Like that's the thing. We're not freer. You're never going to vote yourself free. That's not how it works. You don't get, and I think that's where people get confused, is like, so when the revolution happened, that's a revolution. People had freedom. Yep. But then the Constitution was the counter revolution to the revolution. Anytime you centralize power, you're starting down the wrong road. And they may tell you, hey, you have your say. You get your say by voting. I hear that so many times. I don't get my say. My say doesn't exist in the political spectrum. So how is that my say? I'm supposed to feel good about forcing other people to do things, or having people they voted. And I always use the analogy like, look, you and a bunch of your buddies want to rape me and we take a vote. Of course I'm going to vote no, but guess what? I'm going to be outvoted. Am I just supposed to be like, oh, well, I got my say. At least it was a fair fight. Like, no.
Yeah, voting is 3-card money. Yeah. You may think you're playing the game, but the only person playing the game is the one holding the cards, and you didn't get to pick those cards.
Yeah, you don't even hold the cards.
You get a tiny subset of the cards, and you go, if the card you don't like comes up, you lose. Yeah. And if the card you like comes up, you win. And they flip it over, and guess what? Your taxes just went up.
Right, no matter who's in office. So I encourage you not to vote. I mean, I don't do it. I don't think the political process is the way to change. And a lot of people say, well, you have to change it from the inside. And I appreciate a lot of great activists that I know that work within the Republican or Libertarian parties. And it's not that they don't do good things sometimes. I'm not saying that you cannot bring about good change through the political process. The problem is it's still done by force. It's done by the force of the state. And that to me is wrong. And it's unethical. I can't do that anymore. And so while I appreciate them, and while I don't think that everything they do is bad, I do think that it legitimizes the political process in a way. And once you've legitimized force can be used.
Yeah, I mean, of course they do some good things. That's what they point to. But they do it at a 90% inefficiency. Yeah. They do it in a way that doesn't work very well. They decide what works and what doesn't. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they do it because if you're looking at the things they did good that you like, you excuse the things that they do bad that you don't like. Because they built the road to your house, oh, go ahead and kill all those brown kids.
Right. And we were having there was an interesting conversation. I don't know if you were involved in it with a friend who used to be a former police officer. And that was his argument was you have to fight from within the system. And he did do that. And he got fired like any good cop. If there are any good ones, like we said, they're fired, right? So
the only good cop's an ex-cop?
Yeah, and something like that. That's my favorite kind. The other kind are...
That's slightly nicer than the way I usually
than the way Dan usually puts that. But, that to fight it from the inside and saying, well, I did all these good things and I couldn't have done those good things unless I were a cop. Right. And we were saying, no, you're a good person and you would have done those things regardless. And being a cop, that was the avenue that he got to be in that situation to help a lot of people. But he's helped a lot of people since outside of that. So if there weren't police, it's not like there's no help. It's not like they're not equal where you're saying, well, if I wasn't a cop, those people wouldn't have gotten help. That's not true. People help people generally. He wasn't a cop when he pulled people out of the fires, and things. Right. So that's an argument that people make, and I know they're very tied to that because it becomes personal to them. But that's only looking at the 5%, if that, of good they do. But the price you pay is so high, and it's tyrannical. There's a police state, and people who don't see that are not paying attention, or they're not looking at it in the right way. Because when you give that kind of power to people where they can rape and rob and beat and harm in so many different ways, people who are just going about their daily lives for revenue generation, how can you support that? You can't truly support that and call yourself someone who loves freedom, someone who loves liberty. So I guess that's what I have to say on the matter. I want people to live in a freer world, and you're not going to get that by voting.
So the one other thing I'll say is that one of the other reasons why I collect these Guy Fawkes masks is because of the people in Hong Kong. They're the only people in the world right now standing up to their governments, and they're doing it in these masks.
Yeah.
So buy them from Wish, get the masks, have them and on the ready in case the days ever come where we need to disguise ourselves from facial recognition software.
Yeah, I'm sure we already need to.
But that said, so Google what's going on in Hong Kong if you don't know. Go check out newstoshare.com. Ford Fisher and his partners are doing a great job of keeping people informed about that.
Covering things that the media, the mainstream media won't cover.
People are getting mad at the NBA players for refusing to speak up, but they're refusing to speak up because they're not allowed to. They've got too much money on the line. They can't be the ones. We have to be the ones that speak up about Hong Kong.
I think if they had any...
But they're entertainers.
Right.
They're not the ones with the burden. It's the news that has the burden of informing people.
True, and
on the news people are criticizing the athletes without doing what they're
supposed to be doing. Right, what their job is. Yeah.
So, pay attention to the world. Don't just get your media. Don't get your news from 11 o'clock on TV. Don't go to CNN.com and think you're getting the whole story.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a story. You're just not getting the right one. And I love that meme that you brought up, Hong Kong, that it has a bunch of hands. It's a picture from the protesters, and they're holding American flags, and it says, "Be the America that Hong Kong thinks you are." And goddamn, I love that meme.
Yep.
Like that hits me right in the guts. And so... I guess that's our job. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to start a movement of people or be a part of this movement of people, bring it to more people that we can be better. And I don't mean we as in this big United States collective, but each individual, we can do better. And how we do better and make the world better is that we hold the line. And if the line is somehow, if you think voting is holding any sort of line, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind if you think that putting certain politicians in office is going to make this world better and freer, unless those politicians are ready to just bring it all down. And I don't think it's going to happen that way. Yeah. I just don't see that happening.
If you want to change how politics works, voting isn't going to do it.
Pressure.
Camping out in your politician's office might do it. Mm-hmm. It might help. Yeah. Get to know them personally. Have conversations with them directly. Don't vote for somebody because they give you the right talking points. Go and talk to them when they vote against the way you think they should.
Mm-hmm. And just the pressure from the outside. I really think that that's what we can do, is that we have to start really reinforcing and building a culture where we don't tolerate people's rights being violated for any good reason. So when they come to you and they say red flag laws, this is how they sell it. This is how a Republican senator sells this, is that, well, when Republicans talk about common sense gun laws, it's not the same as those liberals when they talk about common sense. Well, I wish I had it pulled up in front of me. He actually said this. And people will buy that. But what they're not considering is that these same people who they feel this sort of kinship with because of the little R that they have by their name, these same people are selling you out just as much as the other people that they've made you afraid of. I'm not afraid of my liberal neighbors. I'm afraid of the force of government that they can bring to bear on me. They shouldn't be afraid of any Republican either. What they should be afraid of is the force of government, the force that government can bring to bear on them. And that is the political system. And that is what you're voting for, is you're voting for force and violence to be used against peaceful people. People can have many different opinions about things, but it's the state, it's the power that you give them and legitimize, and they think they have mandates to do things. Look, how many times have the Democrats and Republicans held both the House and the Senate? Many times.
It's
and
basically
they never
once
do
in every,
anything.
It's once in every political cycle. The House and the president gets both parties. And what happens when they do that is all the bad stuff
Yeah,
happens.
and the Republicans never do the things that they say they care about and love. They never really get those things done, and the Democrats never really get those things done because, guys, they need you to be afraid. They need you to continue to hate each other, and if they actually solved some problems and got those things out of the way, they wouldn't have their legitimacy anymore. Their authority is not legitimate in your lives, so don't buy their lines and their lies and believe that you're going to get more freedom by having more government. It's just never going to happen.
I think that summarizes it. Now we need to keep you from ending up in the hospital.
I know. My blood pressure's already it's pretty high lately, y'all. So I guess that's it for us for this evening.
remember the 5th of November.
Yeah. Let us know what you think in the comments. And we certainly, I have to say, I really love all you guys who, I see you out there talking to people and doing things. And Facebook has its problems, but it magnifies each one of our voices. So I don't think there's a more committed bunch of political, philosophical activists out there than voluntarists. And there aren't many of us, but there are more every day. And I've seen it happening. And it's because of people like you who are out there talking to people on Facebook and pushing them on their violence and their lack of ethics and, the things that they say that are just bullshit and they don't believe. And so I appreciate that. And I know how difficult it is. I know that it's not easy to feel like you're on the outs all the time. But, I think we're making a difference, and it's a difference worth talking about. Even if we're never a majority at all in this country, it's worth having those conversations. It's worth talking about because these ideas are worth fighting for. And I'm glad that you guys are in the fight with us. So until next time, peace.